Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind, episode 68.
And I'd like to communicate that you can have a balance and that technology can be used responsibly. It can be used in a healthy way because it's here and it's not going away. We are getting more and more bombarded. Our lives are becoming more and more digitized, and we need to learn how to deal with that, and we need to learn to teach our kids how to deal with that.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is John Wilkerson. John combines his professional experience in the computer industry with 16 years of homeschooling 7 children to give parents easy-to-understand advice on the application of technology in their homes. In addition to instructional articles and podcasts, you'll find articles on homeschooling philosophy, how the digital age influences our daily lives, and how parents use technology to teach their children at home. Welcome, John.
Well, thanks for having me, Rebecca.
It's super fun. I was telling John, the Wired Homeschool is definitely up there in my favorite podcasts. I learned so much from John, so I'm excited to have him join us. John, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your family and maybe some hobbies and passions that you have?
Well, sure. Thanks for the opportunity. I've been married to my wife, Lisa. It'll be actually 17 years tomorrow.
Oh, that's crazy.
And like you read there, we do have 7 children. Our oldest is in college, and our youngest is 7 years old. So we have them all the way from teenagers down to elementary school kids.
So you've tried everything, huh?
I have tried a lot of different things, and we've got a lot of experience and still more to experience. And I have really I've been involved with computers pretty much all my life. My dad was a computer operator in the Army, and so I've always been around them. Unlike a lot of other people who are in their 40s like me, not everyone has been around computers their entire life, but I have, and it's something that's always been a passion of mine, along with my family and a bunch of other geeky little hobbies that I don't generally talk about too much.
Well, I saw that on there. That's kind of fun. And I was telling John, too, like right before I found his podcast, I found an article in Wired magazine that talked about how techies are hacking education through technology. Anyway, so I thought it was kind of a fun, thing that I found that. But what was your personal education? Were you homeschooled or?
I was not homeschooled. I bounced from school to school as a kid because, like I said, my dad was in the Army, and so we moved around a lot, and I went to a lot of different schools. When we were overseas, I went to school on the base in Germany, and when we were in the U.S., it was a mix of both, either in elementary school and middle school and even high school. I went to 2 different middle schools in 2 different years, and it was just a very different experience than I think most people in the U.S. are exposed to when it comes to schooling.
Yeah, exactly. So why did your family choose to homeschool then?
Well, my wife is a certified teacher here in New York, and she has firsthand experience with what it's like to teach in New York. And she knows what happens in the schools. And we just really feel that individualized instruction is really the best way to go. The way our education system was started, the whole idea behind creating a good factory worker, it really doesn't work anymore in today's world. And rather than try and fix an already broken system, we kind of decided that it would be best to homeschool so that we could give our kids the individual attention that they needed.
Yeah, fixing that system sometimes takes years, and it's best to just, especially when it comes to your own kids, just to be able to pull them out and to do the things that are best for them anyway. So it's interesting, too, that I see a lot of educators that are actually the ones that are pulling their kids out and choosing to homeschool. So how has what is your role in homeschooling your kids? Is that mostly your wife's job?
My wife probably does about 90% of it. I come home and I help in the evenings. I help out on weekends and when there's science projects and things to do. It's probably what the typical dad is involved with homeschooling, although that's starting to change. We're seeing a lot of dads that are staying at home and doing the homeschooling, and I think that's great. But when you've got a wife who's certified to teach and also has a master's degree in math, you're gonna leave that to her.
Yeah. Well, and you're busy too. You're providing for your family and stuff like that, right? So she has the resources to do that, to be
Absolutely.
Home. So how do you think your paradigm, your educational philosophy changed over time and with experience?
Wow, it really changed a lot. And thanks for asking that question, Rebecca, because it's not one that I've been asked a lot. I would say that the way it's changed the most is just realizing that education isn't about facts and figures. It's more about teaching a child the love of learning. And when you can teach a child to love to learn, then teaching them the facts and figures aren't as hard. And so that's something that we've endeavored to do in our homeschooling is to teach our kids to learn, to love learning, and to learn how to get the information that they want.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how when they have the drive for it, like you said, you don't have to force and you don't have to cram numbers and figures and facts in their brains. They just do it automatically. So
no, you give a kid the game Minecraft is the example everyone uses. You drop a kid in front of the game Minecraft, they will figure out how to use that, and they'll find places on the internet on how to build this and how to build that and how to do all these different things. And it's because it's something they're interested in doing. And so if you can stir that interest in another topic, they'll do the same thing with history or science or math or whatever the subject may be.
Yeah. And instead of like our traditional school system tends to divide subjects, but when you're home, you see them kind of mesh together a little bit better. I mean, like you said, you can take one thing that you're maybe interested in and that pushes it into history and that pushes it into, writing and anyway. So things like that. So,
absolutely.
So do you want to give us kind of an overview of the Wired Homeschool, like how that came about, what your message is and what you're trying to achieve through that?
Sure, thanks. The Wired Homeschool is a podcast that I started in 2010. I think it was July 2010. And over there, what I like to say is I provide tech tools and tips for homeschooling the internet generation, because we're in a generation now of children who have always grown up with social media. They've grown up with the ubiquity of constant internet connections, and it's tough. It's tough for someone like me who really likes technology because we have to find that balance, and it's tough for people who are maybe not afraid of technology but just have some skepticism as to whether or not Instagram could be useful in homeschooling, for example. And I like to try and talk about new technology that's coming out as well as existing technology, but also kind of take a different look on some of the tech and say, how can this be applied in the homeschool? And it's not as if I have all my kids have social media accounts, or we have all these crazy number of devices in our house or anything like that. In fact, we don't. What I like to say is I'm just offering this as here's a way that it could be done with the technology, because if we did all the things that I did a podcast about, we would constantly have our faces in front of screens. And so I just like to provide this kind of a different look, as well as responsible internet use and internet safety for parents and for kids.
Well, and really, I think the safety issue is maybe what keeps a lot of parents at bay, for using technology. And like you said, a lot of kids that they're growing up with this. It's something that they enjoy. It's something that they want to use. I was watching a video today of teachers, who were destroying kids' cell phones and their computers. When they caught them doing stuff that they didn't necessarily want them, that they didn't think was educational, they were destroying their computers. And I was just thinking, well, that's really sad because they're taking something that kid loves. And instead of using it to their advantage of how they can educate them, they're destroying it, which sends like kind of a wrong message in a way. And so what are some of the guests? I mean, what kind of guests have you had on your show, and what have you talked about as far as integrating technology into an educational application?
Well, as far as guests that have been on there, I'd have to look at my list here. Hold on just a minute.
I've learned a lot about like how you can even do art and music and those kinds of things with technology.
Right. We had Rob on from Art for Kids Hub, and he does art lessons on YouTube. And so we had him on, I think in February, and last month I had Chad Burns on he was the director of the Beyond the Mask movie, and we talked about his homeschooling background and the movie coming out. And I think I can't remember who I had on January, but I try and bring in someone every month, just so there's a different voice on the podcast, and they can just get a different look at how other people look at technology and how much they use it. Some people use it more than I do. Some people use it less, but I remember who we had in January. We had on Michael Hansen from Finding Christ in Cinema, and he talked about integrating film reviews into homeschooling.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
So we take a lot of different looks at homeschooling and how different types of technology can be used when I bring in someone who I want to interview.
Yeah, I listened to one about how they're using technology to teach children that have learning disabilities as well.
Yes.
So lots of different fun podcasts about different technology. I'm trying to look right now too. In fact, I have to check out what's going on with my iTunes, because there's a couple on here that I'm like, I didn't get that one. Anyway, so
right.
So what are some of your ideas of implementing technology into homeschooling? What have you and your family done?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we've done is we actually do use YouTube quite a bit. It's great for finding science projects.
Oh, yeah. That's my favorite, too.
And the biggest thing is you can now see how they're done. I remember when I was growing up, you looked in a book and it told you how to do a science experiment, and you never knew if you were quite doing it right.
Exactly.
But now with YouTube, you can go on, you can find several different people who did videos, and even people who maybe they did the experiment and it didn't come out the way that they thought it would come out, and talking about what caused the problems. So we like to use YouTube that way, as well as, like I said, Art for Kids Hub. We've used that in a major way. We have a great little set of robots called Dash and Dot that the kids have been using a lot to learn about programming and logic, and those are controlled by an iPad. And so they use that to do various different things. My daughter spelled the word dot using the iPad, using the robot, which is pretty difficult because it has two wheels that rotate, and you can rotate them in opposite directions. And so you kind of have to figure out exactly how you want to get that robot to move in order to spell the words.
Oh, that's
so we've
neat.
done that. Yeah. And they've done online courses and things like that. So we're doing quite a bit. There are a lot of websites that they've used in the past to do math drills, to do geography drills. So a lot of different things that we've done, including apps on the iPad and the iPhone and things like that.
Yeah, those sound great. Sometimes I wonder why people are still using the traditional school, because there's so much on the internet that I'm like, especially with YouTube and stuff like that. I know I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question, but what are some tips that you would give to parents to keep their kids safe on the internet?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, the first thing that I think is absolutely important, Rebecca, is that people learn to use the device that they're putting in their kids' hands. You wouldn't hand your car over to your teenager unless you knew how to drive it yourself. and you wouldn't hand it over without instruction. So why would you hand your 8-year-old a device that when you don't really know how it works? Now, I'm not talking about turning it on and tapping and things like that. I'm talking about going in, looking at the settings, seeing what kind of parental controls are available on that device and things like that. A lot of people don't realize that the devices that they're putting in their kids' hands are giving their kids full access to the internet. And maybe you don't want to do that, or they don't realize that they have enabled location services on a particular app. And so now it's tracking everywhere that you're going, or every time you take a picture, there's location information associated with that picture.
Yeah.
And so the biggest key to keeping your kids safe online is knowing about the devices that you're giving to your kids. And then the next thing is to model responsible technology use. If they see you using technology responsibly and you're the example that they're seeing, then they're going to use it responsibly too.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're using it to educate yourself, they're going to use it as a tool of education versus just some social media, place to do that
Exactly.
and stuff like that. So, yeah. What do you suggest as far as like where your technology tools are placed? Because I mean, in our family, we kind of have a rule like, after 10 o'clock, they're not allowed to have any technology in their room, even their little iPod or whatever, because, well, we want them to sleep for one. We don't want them to sit and text their friends and then, like you said, it gives that child full access. And when they know, you're occupied with sleeping or something, what would you recommend as far as that goes? Like where they have their technology devices?
Right. We do pretty much the same thing. Our kids are not allowed to bring their devices into their rooms after bedtime. And the computers and anything that's internet connected is in the open. And our kids understand, we explain to them that you don't have any privacy in our house.
Yeah.
That as our child, we will grab your device and look at it at any time. We recently got my oldest daughter a smartphone, and she's starting to text with it. And I said, I don't want you deleting your texting record, because I want to be able to check it and see who you're texting and what you're texting about. And it's not because I'm snooping on her or anything like that. I just want to make sure she's using it the right way.
Well, and as a parent, if she's not, you will be, if they're sending pictures or whatever that's not appropriate, you could be held responsible for those anyway.
Exactly.
Before we go on, let us take a minute and hear about our sponsors. Changing a paradigm takes some study, but like me, you are probably super busy. That's why we've teamed up with Audible. Go to our website, theluminousmind.net, get a free month of Audible with 2 audiobooks, thousands of titles in exchange for only books that you absolutely love. You too can be learning on the go to keep that fire burning. Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with John Wilkerson from the Wired Homeschool podcast. One of the podcasts that I missed was A Parent's Guide to Snapchat, because Snapchat scares me to death. And maybe people don't understand what Snapchat is. Do you want to kind of explain to them what that is?
Sure. So Snapchat is a photo sharing app that basically it's like Instagram, but the key thing is that the images disappear after a certain period of time, so they're not out there all the time.
Which I'm like, why?
Internet to see.
Which I'm in my mind, I'm like, why would you take pictures of something that you wouldn't want everyone? Obviously, you're not doing the best things with it. And that's my impulse. Is there better ways that you can use Snapchat?
I have seen, a lot of companies now are starting to move to Snapchat, and the reason they are is because of the immediacy of the of the images. And so because those images disappear, when someone gets a notification, they check it right away because they don't want to miss whoever they're following or whatever they're doing. Some personal brands are starting to use it. Carlos Whitaker, who's a speaker and a musician, he has been using it to kind of share what's going on when he's on the road touring and things like that. So
there are positives for it.
There are positive uses for it, but I think the nature of it, the fact that it's actually designed to make stuff disappear, is troubling to me. And if you have a child who is responsible enough to do that, I always say you have to make your own decisions about your own family. But for me personally, it's not something that I'm going to let my children use. My daughter asked me last year if she could get Snapchat on her iPod. And I looked at her and I said, no. She said, well, my friends have it. I said, well, their parents are crazy.
Exactly.
So
that's been my opinion about it too, but I'm excited that people are actually going to use it for, positive things.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe in the future that'll change. Snapchat actually has a page now that for parents talking about safety and how to tell your kids how to use it responsibly and things like that. But the fact that you have to put on your page that if you're under 18, don't take nude pictures of yourself. Yeah. That right there should tell you that there's a concern even from the developers of the application about how it is being used.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is that those pictures, they don't disappear.
Yeah.
And people can save those pictures. There's tons of apps out there that are designed to capture images from Snapchat. And so you're kind of wasting your time if you're taking pictures on Snapchat hoping nobody will see them after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, and I've always, when something comes through, I can take a picture just instantly with my phone of it. So if something came through like that, it just, like you said.
Exactly.
There's just also too many concerns. But anyway, let's move on. So what are some successes that you've seen? I mean, you're a homeschooling parent yourself, and then you've got this fun podcast about technology and integrating that into your homeschool. What are some successes that you've seen with all of that?
Wow. Well, I think the way that my kids have really we got these robots for Christmas, and my kids have really latched onto it, and they're always asking if they can use them. Are your chores done? Yeah, okay, you can use the robots. You kind of don't want to keep them away from something that's educational, but at the same time, you don't want them just playing with. I mean, they're fun to play with.
You got to have some diversity and be a little well-rounded, right?
Exactly. So I have really been excited to see how they have done that and started taking on using them. And I'll give them little challenges every now and then. Why don't you try making the robot do this and see if you can program it to do a certain thing? And they'll try it out and try to do it. And so that helps them develop with logic and things like that. We only have 3 kids that actually have their own kind of personal digital devices in our home. And I know that's going to change in the years to come as they all grow up. I'm just glad to see that I know that they're getting pressure from their friends to text and to do this, and why don't you have this app on your phone or whatever. And I'm just glad to see that they're not constantly pressuring us about it. That when they see a kid out and the kid has their nose in the phone all the time or in a tablet, that they look at that and they think that's weird, that the kid's not interacting with their family. And so that to me is the biggest success that I see, because I mean, I'll tell you, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes too. I'll come home and I'll plop down in a chair after a long day worth of work and just open up my phone and look at my email and stuff instead of spending time with my kids. And I have to catch myself, or my wife has to say something to me about it. And I have to remind myself quite often. It's easy to get sucked in. And if it's easy for an adult to get sucked in, imagine how easy it is for a kid to get sucked in. So
yeah, like you said, you have to be a responsible mentor to your children about technology and how to use it. I am kind of interested interested in that too, because my kids actually do their schooling online, and I do find that interesting that they think it's weird to see some of their peers so involved in their technology, where my kids are using, they're in it all the time. Maybe that's they're doing it so much that the excitement's worn off or something. I don't know, but
that could be. So do you mind if I ask you a question?
Oh no, that's great.
So how many hours a day do your kids spend in front of a screen if they're doing all their schooling online?
Well, the online education is more of an educational prompt. Like math, yes, they do spend a lot more time reading through the material, and then there's lots of fun games and stuff that they do with their math curriculum. But as far as their reading, their literature and those types of lessons go, grammar and all of that, they're using hard books. The computer is just a prompt of asking them questions, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, I have shelves and shelves of books that they go through and read versus just doing everything on the computer. And I think that's the beauty of technology, is that it allows you access to things that, our parents and our grandparents didn't have access to as far as education goes. But we're not just totally an online paperless family. We value
do you
books.
find it more difficult to limit screen time because your kids are in front of the computer all the time?
Not really, because like I said, 2 or 3 hours of doing schoolwork, they want to be out playing outside like any other child, especially if the weather's nice. And I mean, that's the number one thing I get asked, around lunchtime is like, hey, can I go outside and play? And they're out playing for hours. They love technology, and they use it, and they have lots of fun games and stuff that they like to play, but I just don't see them having a problem with an addiction. I have problems mostly with my younger kids than I do my older ones, which it just seems like with their peers, it's the opposite.
Sure.
I don't know. I guess I've seen younger kids that they can't get enough of their dad's iPad or something like that. But
right. Well, I don't want to hijack your interview here. So,
well, and I haven't really talked about my kids' education and how I use technology, and I love technology. Like I said, I think it's a wonderful tool, and it can be used for great things if we allow that. And like you said, as a parent, don't be scared of it. Learn how to use it, and it can be successful. So anyway, we'll go back to you. You're a super busy guy, and you work and you provide for your family. Plus you got this podcast and blogging and stuff like that. What personal habits that you have that help you manage your home life and your family and all those activities to be a successful father?
Well, I have to tell you, Rebecca, I have some very bad habits, actually. So, but I do a lot of the things that I do that don't pay the bills. I do in the margins, and so I find time during my workday, usually on a lunch break, to do something. Spend 20 or 30 minutes working on something in particular. I do a lot of scheduling. I use a great tool called Buffer that I use to schedule a lot of my social media updates, and that allows me to get up in the morning. I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I do a quick triage of my email that has come in from the night before and overnight, and then if there are things that I need to respond to, I go ahead and respond to them immediately. And I might work on a blog post, or I might do some research, or I might schedule some social media updates. And it really all has to be done. Typically, it's done before I leave for work and late in the evenings, usually after 9 o'clock or something like that. So it's tough sometimes because you feel like you're going and you're going and you're going. But I've been involved in the customer service world for several years now. I started doing tech support for computers back in the mid-90s. And even right now, as a professional, I do IT at a college, and I basically still really doing the same thing, customer support. And so being able to help people figure out how to use their technology and how to use the tools that are available to them really it's a joy to me. And if I can help someone out with something, then that makes me happy, and that's reward enough.
Like that service side takes over where you
Right.
end up enjoying it. That's great.
Right.
Well, and your podcast is starting to become quite successful too. Your website looks great. I definitely encourage everybody to check out his website because there's lots of tools and tips and technical things that you can like I said, I'm not a very good mentor in technology sometimes.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a social media series right now, and I'm looking at a lot of the different social media apps that are out there, and I'm actually basing it off of an article that I read over on medium.com that was written by a teenager about how teens view and use social media. And so I use that as a catalyst, and I've been doing this it's been almost 2 months now that I've been doing this series. So and I've been getting a lot of great feedback on it.
Yeah. So what was the name of that article? Media?
It was over at medium.com, and the name of the article was...
I'll just include it in your show notes. Cause
Yeah, I can find it here pretty quickly. The name of the article is A Teenager's View on Social Media, and it's over at medium.com. Okay. And it's a 2-part article. It's very long. It covers a lot more social media apps than I'm going to cover. I'm going to hit the kind of the big ones that everyone knows about. There are some there that I look at and go, oh, I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Put that on the list to watch out for.
Yeah, exactly. And to learn how to use. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
Right.
So what are some long-term goals that you have for yourself and for your podcast?
Wow. Well, that's a great question. For myself, I would say I just want to make sure that the word gets out about technology and homeschooling. I typically see one of 2 approaches to tech and homeschooling. Either people are all in and they're going nuts over it, or they're all out and they don't want anything to do with it. And I'd like to communicate that you can have a balance and that technology can be used responsibly. It can be used in a healthy way because it's here and it's not going away. We are getting more and more bombarded. Our lives are becoming more and more digitized, and we need to learn how to deal with that, and we need to learn to teach our kids how to deal with that. As far as the podcast is concerned, I'm really happy with its growth right now, and I've had a few speaking opportunities that have come out of it. I'd like to do some more speaking at homeschool conventions or with homeschool groups. And other than that, I've got a few book ideas in my head that I haven't started on yet, but they're kind of just incubating right now. So,
well, I'm going to keep an eye on it because it's just a lot of great information that I've learned a lot from you. So great. So before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice, either to families or to, other dads, or do you have a favorite quote you'd like to share? And then let us know how we can get in touch with you.
Well, the biggest piece of advice I would give is remind people that technology is a tool. It's not the end game when it comes to education. You're using technology to enhance the educational experience. And when you can use it responsibly, when you can use it safely, it becomes, I think, the best tool in your arsenal, because there may be a topic that you might be proficient in and may be able to teach, but there could be somebody out there on YouTube or somewhere who can do a better job than you because they're really excited about the topic. And so don't be afraid to look into different ways to use technology. And remember, like I said, it's a tool. It's not the end goal in education.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and like I said, I kind of started the podcast with that. I see a lot of people that are smashing it when it's something that the kids love. I watched one video where a teacher smashed the kid's phone and he just got up and left. And all I was thinking is like, well, that teacher they have now made it impossible to actually teach that child because, to do something so destructive to his own property, something that he loved. I was like, so we got to find ways that we can use it in our classrooms instead of necessarily banning it, that allows kids, it sparks their interest in a subject and allows them to continue to move forward and learn and to use that as a tool. Like you said, that would be sad if we just have all this technology and it just ends up being a big social media site,
right.
For other things like that. So, Well, I really appreciate you coming on with us. Did you give us your contact information?
I didn't get to that yet.
Sorry,
no.
before I interrupted you.
Nope, that's fine. So you can find me over at thewiredhomeschool.com. And there's a Facebook page, thewiredhomeschool.com/Facebook. And pretty much think of a social media outlet and put / the name of it after thewiredhomeschool.com/Twitter, /Pinterest. And those are all the ways that you can get in touch with me. I do have a personal Twitter account too that I tend to be a little bit more active on than I am with the Wired Homeschool. And that one is at JWILKERS.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a big pleasure to have you on, and I've enjoyed talking to you too.
Thanks for having me, Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about John Wilkerson and the Wired Homeschool podcast, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Also, be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list so you can receive notifications for our weekly audio blog, The Spark. We would love to have you join our program. Do so by going to the scheduling tab and become a fire starter today. Help support the podcast by making all your Amazon purchases through the free Amazon widget on our website, theluminousmind.net. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Google+. Get our audio content on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. Leave us a review. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.